Have you ever had crippling anxiety? And I mean like crippling anxiety. I'm going to share with you today stories from my own journey where I had what's called agoraphobia. I'll explain what that is and kind of what the consequences of it were and how it eventually got past it and really was able to expand into a social arena. If you and I have not met yet, my name is Troy. My goal is to help you 10x your results in areas of health, wealth, and relationships. So what is agoraphobia? Agoraphobia essentially is when anxiety gets so bad that you are afraid to leave anywhere that you can't define as a safe place. So what that looks like is, for most people, your house. So essentially your house becomes the only place your mind thinks you're actually safe. And so I actually reached this point. I'll kind of lead you up to what I believe led to this, and then how I understood it and how I was eventually able to work through it, and some tools that you can actually use for yourself. Because look, anxiety, when you really understand it and realize like that you have it, because I essentially had it for years but was unaware I did. I just kind of masked it through different activities. But when you realize, like, wait a second, I think this is anxiety, you realize how much it influences your life and kind of can impact it in a negative way, essentially. But it can also be one of your greatest teachers. So for me, I went through life and I just had, childhood stuff that led to, let's call it trauma, right? Remember, trauma is just something that's too much in the environment or the situation at that time. It doesn't mean that today you might look back at it and be like, nah, it wasn't that big of a deal. But at the moment, in that time, it was too much. And what happens is let's just call it your mind, right? Your ego construct, your mind, it goes into this primitive kind of thinking process and develops these safeguards. As an example, say someone hurt you really bad, either physically, emotionally, verbally, whatever it is. You might develop this simplified story that says, people are dangerous, or I don't like people, or people are dumb, whatever it is. And it's like, notice how it's like this simple statement that just takes over this massive like definition. All people are dumb, right? Again, like we've talked about, that's not always true. For something to be a truth, it has to be true 100% of the time. So when you realize this, right, you look into the story behind it. So for me, I had all these short little narratives that kind of had taken place throughout childhood. And then as an adult, man, I had a lot of like getting stabbed in the back, a lot of my dreams getting taken away from me. And so what I realized happened is, over time, I kind of reached this place where I'd experienced so much, call it trauma, pain, suffering, grief, loss, all those things, that I just had all these short definitions in my mind of, why even try? Why trust somebody? Why do that? And so it's like, think of it like like a seesaw, right? Finally tipping into one direction. Maybe at one point you're really positive and optimistic about life, and then it kind of like, life hits you with these different challenges, and then at one point it's like, dude, screw this, right? And that's where I was, like, screw this. Everything is bad, and I was essentially like engulfed by these narratives and this trauma. And literally, I remember just I slowly started to isolate myself more and more. I wouldn't go out, wouldn't meet people. Then I wouldn't even meet people for coffee. And then pretty soon it was like I didn't want to leave my house, to literally, right? And I lived in like a really nice, but a cool neighborhood. Like nothing wrong with the neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood, park close by and stuff. And I remember like thinking like that, man, as an example, like my kids, I have kids, right? Like they'd go play with the neighbors or something like that. And I'd be like, dude, something's going to happen. Like, one of the neighbor kids going to get hurt, and then, they're going to like, we'll be in trouble for it. And man, and I'd come up with maybe a really good business idea. I should do this business idea. It's like, oh no, I can't do that. That would just fail. This would happen. People will take advantage of me. And my mind would just quickly loop into these negative narratives, like fast, fast, fast. And so think about it. Your brain, when this is taking place, is trying to protect you. I had been through a lot in my past, but I hadn't healed it. I hadn't worked through it all. It had just, at this point, my journey, it just happened to me. And so all these things had happened to me, right? That's why I viewed them in my mind, right? The narrative, and then the narrative kind of gets created around that. And so why would you go outside? The world just sounds like a war zone. And so in understanding this, I remember kind of like, man, it was like cracking open like a coconut or something. And I was the coconut. And it finally like cracked open one day. I was just like, it was just too much. And that can often happen when you're in deep pain, deep suffering, it's kind of like you're running your head into the wall. And then one day, either it's not like you break through the wall, it's just like everything stops. And you're just like, I'm done with this. Like, enough is enough. The pain is just, it's been too long. And an opening takes place. And when this opening takes place, there can really be a beautiful moment of growth. It's very spiritual, actually. And, don't go looking for that, right? But if you're in pain, if you're in these suffering type of moments, like there's an opening taking place as well. And it's really powerful if you can grab the opportunity, if you can grab the invitation, the lesson. And so what I encourage you to do is to look into that anxiety. And that's what I started to do. I started to look into this anxiety. What's going on here? What am I afraid of? Like, what am I telling myself? I started getting present, right? Relaxing a little bit and examining my mind, right? Like, it's one thing to get shoved in your head. And at this point, obviously I was shoved in my head. And it's another thing when you're shoved in your head with massive negative narratives. And so it's like, then you go even further back. And that's where I would call like agoraphobia. It's like you're way back there in your head. And it's like this negative storm cloud surrounding you. And so by examining these things, you start to be able to slowly deconstruct these narratives. So like as the example with my kids running off and playing with the neighbor or something like that, I'm like, is that really going to happen? Probably not. Like the chances of that are very, very slim. And if they did, I'll be all right. I'll figure it out. But this fear, this is kind of what I mean with that, like your head running against the wall moment. This fear, this energy you've been holding on to of the what ifs is worse than if it actually happened. Like you reach that point where like, dude, screw that. I'm just done thinking about it. And it's kind of like that moment, like where you just realize like you're over it. And so I just started going, dude, fuck it. Like I'd rather like just deal with this than that. And with that, it's almost like this looseness happens, this letting go, and the energy kind of shifts and kind of moves out. And so I'd go through these different narratives, like, okay, all right, I'm not, because I've been an entrepreneur for 2 decades, right? So business was a big part of my life. And at this point, I had a business, but it was really small, wasn't doing a lot with it, because obviously I was afraid to grow it. Like I just kept it very simplified. And so it was like, all right, let me just take the next step out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Fuck it. Because this is worse. Like this ain't doing anything either, And so I started taking a little more risk here. Okay, let me go into a social environment. And if something bad happens, something bad happens. Fuck it. Again, right? Like, oh, well, it'll be all right. And so it's like this letting go of the what ifs, if that happens. Think of it like this. I want you to think of it like, when like a dog grabs like a chew toy or something like that, right? Your brain kind of does this. It's like, it's chewing on this idea, this concept. And then eventually you just go, let it go. It's like telling the dog, drop it. And you just drop it. You're just done with it. And so that's kind of the first invitation into these energies, just getting awareness around it. Like we have to get awareness around what's taking place to then move forward. So once you have that, then you can kind of go into what are those narratives even deeper? Like what are the narratives? What are the things that I'm telling myself? And you'll often realize there's what's called a trigger around it. Now, if you're not familiar with what a trigger is, it's essentially like a moment where something reminds you of something in the past, and your brain, like what I describe it as, like to you, it seems like a level 10. But in reality, for most people who don't have that same trauma or same experience, it's like a level 2, a level 3. It's not that big of a deal, right? So I had a lot of financial or money wounds for a season of my life. And so I would make a mistake. I would spend too much here. I bought the wrong product here. And it'd be simple, right? It wouldn't even be that much. But to me, it felt like the end of the world. I was like, oh my God, So I was triggered. I started catching that and going, wait a second, I'm being triggered. Right. And I'd be barraged with my own negative self-talk. How dare you? How could you do this? Right. And so when you think of social situations, it's the same thing. You probably hear yourself say things like, oh, God, I sound like such an idiot. Dude, what a dork. Like those are like, see how aggressive those are, right? Very aggressive self-talk. And so you start to catch those when you go out. Right. And then draw it back deeper. Like I would do this same thing. Like, oh, you're an idiot. Like, why would you say that? Who said that? Da, da, da. This very deep self-judgment. But I started realizing, and again, they didn't even notice. It was a level 2 situation, a level 3 situation. Or maybe they did think that was kind of goofy or whatever, right? But to me, it was a level 10. It was such a big deal. And so again, you escape deeper and deeper because everything's so explosive to you. But as you start to realize it's not that big of a deal, and that trigger is now, here's the key, that trigger is an invitation to see what's actually taking place inside my mind. What is the story I'm telling myself? So I would have these stories like in social environments where I might say something. I'm like, oh, you're a dork. You're an idiot. How dare you look so stupid? And then I'd be like, what's going on here? And I'd see this chain of events that led to what you could just summarize as being a perfectionist. I call myself like a recovering perfectionist. And then I would start to like unpack that. Why? Like, why do I have to be perfect? Dude, you don't. Like, you're human, right? The only thing that's good at being perfect is a robot. And I ain't no fucking robot, right? I hope you don't want to be a robot. And so you're human. I would tell myself, you're human, dude. It's okay. It's okay to do this. It's okay to do that. You don't have to be perfect. You're enough as you are. I would remind myself of these things. And it would like loosen up my frame and loosen up my energy. And so then I could go out into these social situations, or I could do something in my business and make a mistake. And think of this like energy, right? And again, when I use words energy, just so you know, there was a time in my life where if you would have said energy to me, I'd be like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about energy? Right? But just feel into this concept a little bit if this is kind of unique to you. It's like, imagine the energy that you carry in your body, right? In the physical like body, right? You can see it through your tension, right? Is if you're going into an environment socially and you're expecting yourself to sound like a dork, sound like an idiot, because that's what you told yourself last time, whatever, these deep narratives. You're going to be tight, you're going to be clenched, you're going to be contracted, your voice will contract, you'll get in your head, and you won't even want to go in there. Why would you? It's not very fun. But if you have like a different perspective that says, I'm human, I don't have to be perfect, it's okay, whatever, right? Just do it. And so then you're going to be much more likely to take those steps to allow yourself to do that. Now, so again, you're recognizing the trigger. What's causing this trigger? You're following it backwards and going, what am I telling myself about this situation? And there's usually something, and I don't think maybe you do, right? But not always. You don't have to go like deep into your childhood, why this happened, why this. For me, when you think about perfectionism, it was, school, right? Hey, raise your hand, sit down, be quiet. I played football and different sports for many years. Lots of coaches. Hey, be perfect. I played quarterback. Right. So an interception is the end of the world. You got to be perfect with your passes. You got so a lot of valuable things out of that, but it also can cascade and kind of envelop and enclose on you. Right. I don't want to be perfect. Right. I want to let it rip in life, man. That sounds way more fun to me. I'd rather throw the ball, and if I got intercepted, I got intercepted, and apologize for it and not throw it all, metaphorically speaking. Right. So you're recognizing the trigger, you're following it back and understanding this narrative, and then kind of rechanging the narrative essentially around what you're saying to yourself. And there's all different kinds. Like I said earlier, oh, people are bad, people are dangerous. Again, for something to be a truth, it has to be true 100% of the time. You have to be perfect. You can't do this. Oh, men don't cry, women don't show anger. There's so many that our mind just grabs onto. And so you're kind of loosening and reconditioning the mind to allow yourself to express your energy into the world. And so for me, I started to do this. And then pretty soon the agoraphobia distanced. And then it was more just like general anxiety. Maybe it'd show up here. But these situations where I would get, quote, triggered, it would be like medicine for me. I'd switch the narrative like, oh, that's a good thing when I get triggered. What am I telling myself? And so I grab onto these narratives and then literally like, go, all right, let's learn from this moment. And I would use it as fuel, and I would change the narrative, and then I could go further. So way back into agoraphobia, to anxiety, to a little bit of anxiety, to learning from my triggers, and then to like really feeling like I just let go and allowing myself to express myself. Now, still stuff still comes up, but it's far less. And again, allow it to be my teacher. And then kind of lastly is to drop the idea or the notion that you need to win someone else's approval. Again, that's a lot of the social conditioning type stuff, right? And the reasons why a lot of you, or why you may struggle to go out into social environments, is because it's like this conditioning of, I want, like, you're looking for, am I enough in the eyes of another person, essentially. So I'm looking to you to see if I'm enough, right? I go talk to girl, and if she, gets is happy to see me and, hey, wow, look at you, then I feel good about myself. But then I'm giving away all my energy, all my power to everyone else. If it's a business situation, a deal here, a client there, and I'm looking to them, where's your confidence? Because it's always outside of you. And so it's much more powerful and deeper when you can go inside of yourself and be internally validated. I am enough as I am, and deeply understand that. And then you can bring that energy forward and allow yourself to expand into life. It's really what you're trying to do. Once you like I'm internally I'm enough as I am. Notice that keyword, I can expand. Then you can kind of let go and bring that core essence into the world. It's a beautiful thing. And one of the short ways you can do that is to understand that you are a one of one. You are uniquely you. Oftentimes the brain, the mind gets stuck in comparison, right? And so when you're out socially, you're looking through this comparative dynamic, right? Gosh, they're really good looking. Oh, he's tall. Oh, she's pretty. Oh, she's got a bigger butt than me. Oh, she's got whatever. It's like all this different stuff that goes on, but understanding that you're just one of one. And it's really helpful. So I notice myself getting tight, and I call it you're pinging. You're looking off the environment to tell you where do I fit in here? You're in that comparison type of frame. And so you want to come back to the one of one, your own uniqueness. I'm a one of one. There's nothing to compare to. Right? And that's what makes meeting people so cool and connecting with people, because you're all uniquely you. You're a one of one. So embrace your uniqueness. Notice the value of that. And there's other things you can do to really bring that in as a strength, like understanding and utilizing and bringing your core essence and the uniqueness forward, because that's what we need. We need your uniqueness. We don't need you to copycat someone else. Now, you can learn from other people. You can, aspire to achieve things that they have. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to be your version of it, right? The way you integrate that, the way you share with it, the way you show up in the world is going to be your unique expression. So continually look for that as you follow that kind of the path, right? And it's a beautiful path of liberation. So I hope that you found this very valuable. This is my journey from literally having agoraphobia to social anxiety is even less than agoraphobia. Going from agoraphobia to having social anxiety to just having some anxiety to then being much more liberated, and then understanding when things happen, it's just a moment to go inside of myself and learn and unpack something deeply. And I'm on a journey just like you to bring my core essence forward, and I want to see you do that. We need it. I love you so much. I make these videos for you. Do me a favor right now. Like, subscribe, maybe share this with someone that would benefit from it. And we're all in this together. Sending you so much love. Until next time, peace.